Hey guys, Bryant Greening from LegalRideshare TV. We're powered by Exec. Today we have a special guest. He's a true innovator in the rideshare community. We have Will Coleman, CEO and founder of Alto. Will, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Brian.
So I want to just dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about Alto?
Yeah, absolutely. Alto is a rideshare platform. We're based in Dallas, Texas, and we were founded just over 2 years ago. We at Alto focus on a different kind of rideshare, though. Alto means elevated, and our mission at Alto is to elevate the passenger and the driver experience in ridesharing. And so to do that, we believe in offering safe, professional, and consistent rides every single time for both our passengers and our drivers. To deliver on that mission, we do things a little bit differently than most competitors. We've got employee drivers and a dedicated fleet of vehicles that we provide our drivers to use in our rideshare service. Our drivers are trained, vetted, and performance managed to deliver on a great customer experience to our customers every time. And we also then give them the tools that they need in order to deliver on that excellent experience so that they don't have to worry about keeping their own car clean, their own car safe, their own car fueled or insured. We do all of those things for them so that they can just focus on taking care of our passengers.
So you said something that made my ears perk up a little bit. You have employee drivers. It seems like Uber and Lyft have been running away from that concept since the very beginning. Why did you guys decide to go that route?
Yeah, we felt like in order to really change the paradigm on the experience for both drivers and passengers, we had to do something really dramatically different. We believe that the control of the experience is one of the most important aspects of differentiating our product versus the major players in the space today. And that we aren't a technology company, we're a service company. And so our product is our ride. And what our customers expect is a high quality, safe, clean, and consistent experience in the car every single time. In order to deliver that, we need control of that experience. We need control of the vehicle, and we also need a higher degree of control of the driver. And so we felt like having employee drivers allowed us to do things that you just can't do with independent contractors. There's pros and cons in terms of trade-offs, but for our drivers, it means consistent hourly wages, no worrying about how many trips you take or your utilization. We take all of that responsibility. So our drivers earn hourly wages, and they know how much they're going to make based on how much they're going to work. They're offered healthcare benefits, which are highly company sponsored. We pay 80% of healthcare. They also have obviously other sorts of protections that you get from an employee relationship, like workers' compensation insurance and Social Security. In trade for that, what our drivers give us is a little bit less flexibility than they might have on other platforms. We try to offer as much flexibility as we can, but we also schedule shifts, which means that once you're assigned to a shift and scheduled to show up and work, we expect our drivers to do that. And so that's kind of how the relationship works. And what that means is that we can train our drivers, we can provide them with the tools and the processes that we think are best for delivering a great customer experience to our passengers every single time.
So I think you may be attracting a different type of driver. When we hear about Uber and Lyft and some of the other rideshare companies, they talk all the time about most of their drivers are working part-time, most of their drivers aren't looking for a full-time experience, and that's the reason why they don't want classification as employer. Do you find that to be the case? You're attracting a different type of employee?
Well, the reality is that I think there's a lot of obfuscation in those numbers. 91% of Lyft and Uber drivers, this is reported publicly in their S1s, are part-time, work fewer than 20 hours a week. But the reality is that the vast majority of drivers that are delivering the vast majority of rides are actually working pretty close to full-time. So in our research, we found that drivers that are working 30 or more hours a week are actually delivering close to 80% of the total Uber and Lyft rides out there. And so it's those drivers, the most professional ones, that really are looking to do this as a job. that we attract and that we think we offer the best opportunities for. Certainly, if you're just looking to do something a couple hours a week or maybe just one weekend to try it out, Alto is probably not the right platform for that kind of driver. But we do have a lot of part-time drivers that work for us 10 to 20 hours a week as a second job. And they love that opportunity as well because they get still even more flexibility. They get to select the shifts that they're available to work and tell us when they can be on the clock. And in exchange just for signing up and giving us that sort of notice, they get all of the protections that any other employee would get. So I think, the reality is the biggest thing that you give up in terms of flexibility is really just the decision that, if you're an employee, you can't wake up one morning and decide today, I don't want to go to work. That's not an acceptable excuse for us. And you certainly can do that if you're an Uber or Lyft driver. If you just wake up and, you decide that today just doesn't feel like a day to get on the road, you don't have to. And there's nobody holding you accountable to that. But that's probably the biggest trade-off that we see in our model. And we think that for that reason, we're attracting the absolute highest quality drivers that are out there that are looking to provide a high-quality passenger experience.
So at LegalRideshare, we represent drivers and passengers who have been injured in car accidents and assaults and things of that nature. I know that Alto really prides itself in hiring safe people, doing thorough background checks. Can you tell us a little bit about the measures that Alto takes to ensure the highest level of quality and safety?
Yeah, safety is really at the core of everything we do at Alto. We know that it's so important even when we launched in terms of passenger rides, but now in today's day and age of the coronavirus that we face right in front of us, we think it's even more important to be able to ensure safe and clean experiences for our drivers and our passengers. So what that means is that we do a lot of things in order to protect our drivers and protect our passengers. All of our drivers go through a rigorous background and fingerprint checking process. They're also all drug tested. They all go through several days of training, both in customer service and in safe driving behaviors. And then all of our rides are monitored in real time using interior and exterior facing video that's securely stored directly to the cloud. That's tied to a telematics device that's in every vehicle that allows us to track acceleration, deceleration, speeds, G-forces. We use all of that to measure the safe driving patterns of our drivers, and we actually incent them on driving safely. So they earn bonuses based on their safe driving behavior, in much the same way that you might see some of those insurance companies that do some of the same things through their apps. We want our drivers to be thinking about driving safely every single day, and we can actually coach and performance manage and help them drive safer by collecting this data, algorithmically scoring their driving behavior, helping them understand how they're driving and where they rank amongst our other drivers, and then showing them actual video of different incidences that may have happened and help coach them on how to avoid those in the future. So all of that goes into the safety of both our drivers and our passengers, and then we wrap all of that with a safe vehicle, which we know, is actually the most important thing when you're out on the road, is being in a safe car. Driving is an inherently unsafe activity. And so making sure that you're in a 5-star crash rated, in our case, SUV, that's a late model year. None of our vehicles are older than 24 months. And so they all have the latest safety equipment, and we keep them safe every single day. We have a dedicated team of service agents, we call them, that clean and maintain and do regular maintenance on our vehicles so that when our drivers get in and when our passengers get in, we can be 100% certain it's the safest possible environment we can create out on the road.
So incentivizing, educating, training, I mean, that's the key to a safe experience. And what we see all the time are car accidents. It's 99% of what we do. And it sounds like you guys are doing a good job of making sure that drivers are ready for those situations, and then also that there's the evidence necessary to present a claim should that take place. When you've got video, when you've got real-time data, that can be used by the company, by the driver, by the insurance company to show what really happened. That information does not lie. There's no two sides to the story when you've got that evidence.
Yeah, it's funny. We sometimes get reviews from drivers that say, "I'm not going to work for Alto because I don't want to be tracked, and I don't want somebody to be watching me on video." And I understand that, but I think the drivers that have been in the Alto platform and may have experienced an accident, which do happen, would tell you that in the vast majority of cases, the video actually exonerates our drivers. It keeps them safe. It really proves what happens. It helps us to show somebody else was at fault, and that's the case whether it's an accident on the road or potentially even something that happens inside the vehicle. So most of the time that video really is helpful to the driver, and we think it's important information to have. It allows us to have the lowest insurance rates that we possibly can, the lowest we believe of anyone in the industry, and to ensure that we're able to offer to our drivers and to our passengers the safest possible experience.
Right. And when an Uber or Lyft driver is found to be at fault for an accident, they're really in a bad place in terms of getting the health care that they need or lost wages. It sounds like Alto is offering those benefits in terms of workers' compensation. So even if the driver is at fault for the accident, did make a mistake, they're able to keep at least their baseline of earnings and medical care in place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think workers' compensation is probably not a topic that's discussed broadly enough in this industry today because driving is inherently safe. Actually, workers' compensation is more expensive to us than our base insurance policies on the vehicles themselves and our passengers. And that's because, the reality is if you drive enough miles, there's a very, very high likelihood that you're going to get in an accident at some point. And if you damage your vehicle or damage, or are injured yourself, workers' compensation, for our drivers, regardless of who's at fault, is going to cover the time away from work as well as any health care or medical bills that a driver may have. And that goes into effect the instant, that a driver is in any sort of accident, whether it's in a vehicle or outside of one. And we think that that's a really important protection that a lot of people are not talking about broadly in the industry today.
Well, we tell drivers all the time, it's just a matter of time. The more time you spend on the road, the more likely it is that something bad is going to happen. And thankfully, Alto seems to be taking responsibility to ensure that those drivers are taken care of. So you actually brought up a couple minutes ago the coronavirus and how that's been affecting rideshare. What has Alto been seeing? I mean, how has that affected business or affected the drivers? What's your perspective?
Yeah, it's been a huge impact on our business overall. We've seen here in Dallas 85-90% decline in ride volumes in just the last couple of weeks. And that was very precipitous and dramatic when it happened basically around early to mid-March was the first time we saw that decline start. And from there, we really haven't seen any recovery as the entire city that we operate in has been under shelter-in-place orders, and really the only travel that's happening is absolutely essential. So we are seeing a few rides from essential workers and healthcare professionals, but that's really very, very minor compared to the kind of social and travel and commuting that we were seeing on a daily basis before that. About in early March, we decided, based on what we were seeing in the forecast, as well as looking at other markets that were experiencing COVID impacts before Dallas was, we decided as an executive team and as a company to make a very strong pivot into delivery. So we now are focusing our assets, our drivers and our vehicles, on providing our customers deliveries so that they can stay safe at home, and that we can provide them the things that they need in order to do that. I think what we found is that at Alto, the things that we built the company on around safety, professionalism, and consistency, those are more important today than they've ever been, and will likely be more important tomorrow than they are today, given the kind of acceleration and the growth rate that we've seen in this virus over time. And so, we're able to better protect drivers and better protect passengers, or customers, I should now say, right, in their deliveries, because we can, again, put in place standard operating procedures. All of our drivers, for example, are temperature checked before they come into work. They have sick pay, so they have no incentive to work if they are feeling sick. They have COVID leave and even emergency family leave that's now provided through the CARES Act. And so, we temperature check people. We have a glove policy. We have EPA registered cleaning supplies that our service agents use to disinfect and clean the vehicles multiple times a day. Every time a new driver comes in or out of a car, we know it's 100% disinfected. And then we use gloves and masks and all of that sort of stuff that we provide to our drivers in order to make sure that they are safe while they're out on the road.
That's the biggest complaint that we hear from drivers right now, is that they don't feel adequately protected by the other companies. They are not getting the protective equipment that they need. They're not getting the education that they need on how to disinfect their cars. So that's bravo to Alto for doing that. So the question begs.
One last point there. I think that the biggest challenge this really goes back to the complexity with a marketplace, right? Marketplaces by definition don't have a lot of control. So what you're giving up in terms of control in order to get flexibility is exactly this, right? I mean, when drivers want flexibility, which I understand the need for and desire for, what you're giving up for that is some degree of relationship with a company that can give you these things, right? I mean, it's not that Uber and Lyft can't necessarily help. It's that they have a very hard time helping because they can't actually tell a driver what to do. And so if they start to provide resources and a driver, for whatever reason, decides not to use those, they have no control. They can't promise that that's done to a customer. They can't promise to a driver that they're going to have, the things that they need. And so it becomes a very challenging environment where you're trying to face a big pandemic like this if you don't have control over the product itself. And I think that's what we're seeing has been, one of our biggest advantages at Alto, and something that I think will become a bigger topic to discuss, for marketplaces in general. We're seeing even in Amazon, right? They have probably the most control of any marketplace that exists, and they were able to essentially just kick vendors out that were being bad actors or selling things that didn't make sense. And they essentially clamped into only Amazon-controlled products are getting sold or fulfilled today. And the problem that Uber and Lyft have is that they just don't have any of that control, because the only supply they have is independent contractor drivers.
Well, the companies that can adapt and innovate right now are the ones that are going to survive. I mean, that's the bottom line. Times are trying, and we're all trying to do what we can to make this work. I think the question then begs, what's the future? Rideshare is different today than it was 2 months ago. Where are we going to be when this all passes?
I wish I had a crystal ball, because it would make fundraising and business planning significantly easier. So I honestly don't know is the answer. I'm still relatively optimistic that we're going to see, in the U.S. at least, a relatively strong return to not necessarily fully normal, but back to closer to normal. Certainly, later this summer or into the fall, as we start to have more people that have been exposed and herd immunity in the U.S. So we're expecting right now at Alto that we have, a return in rides sometime in late July, early August, and then growth from there. We'll see if that comes true, but we definitely are now also continuing to just really focus on the here and now, knowing what we can control today and tomorrow, and planning for how we can, survive in this environment through delivery and other customer offers to keep our drivers and our fleet busy and utilized. And we think if we do all of those things, that we'll come out of this actually stronger than when we entered. And so we're hopeful that recovery is sooner than later. But I can't tell you that I'm exactly sure when that's going to happen.
So if I want to sign up to drive for Alto, how do I do that?
Yeah, we'd love for drivers to apply. You could just go to drivealto.com. If you're here in the Dallas Metroplex, we're hiring in Dallas now, and we are still excited about expanding to additional markets. We had planned on 2 market entries for the kind of early second half of 2020. I think those may be slightly delayed based on the environment that's out there today. But we're excited to expand throughout Texas and also into other markets later this year and into early 2021. So we'd love for drivers to check us out and let us know if they're excited about being part of the team.
All right. Well, Will Coleman, thank you for joining us with Legal Rideshare TV powered by Exec. I really appreciate your time, and I know that our followers will certainly enjoy hearing from you.
Thanks. Great to be on. Appreciate you having me.